While we bicker about what to do about global warming, we continue to pump more CO2 into the air. We need global action to reduce CO2 output, and we should have started a decade ago. I wonder if we human beings are going to deal with this problem effectively, because we can't even discuss it productively. On a lot of issues, polarized issues like the war in Iraq, the war on terror, and global warming, you see the same pattern in debates. Opponents state and restate their own positions and ignore or ridicule those that oppose them. In this process, those on each side get more convinced they're right, more committed to their beliefs, and less able to really communicate with or even understand the other side. In our society today, polarizing conflict poisons public discussions of a lot of problems that really do urgently need solving. We get entrapped in polarizing conflict because our identities are bound up in our beliefs and assumptions about crucial social issues. When others disagree with us, our identities are threatened, and we restate our own views more loudly and more forcefully. So polarization becomes a kind of a downward spiral of misunderstanding and hostility, sometimes ending in violent conflict. This polarization makes it impossible to deal intelligently with public issues. This would be almost funny if the consequences weren't so severe. The debate on global warming provides a vivid example of polarizing conflict. And I want to illustrate what happens to the truth in polarizing conflict by looking at Al Gore's movie An Inconvenient Truth, particularly the part that deals with Antarctic ice core samples.
Now, 1,000 years of CO2 in the mountain glaciers, that's one thing. But in Antarctica, they can go back 650,000 years. This, incidentally, is the first time anybody outside of a small group of scientists has seen this image. This is the present day era, and that's the last ice age. Then it goes up. We're going back in time now, 650,000 years. That's the period of warming between the last two ice ages. That's the second and third ice age back, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh ice age back. Now, an important point. In all of this time, 650,000 years, the CO2 level has never gone above 300 parts per million. Now, as I said, they can also measure temperature. Here's what the temperature has been on our Earth. Now, one thing that kind of jumps out at you is, well, let me put it this way. If my classmate from the 6th grade that talked about Africa and South America were here, he would say, did they ever fit together? Most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But they did, of course. And the relationship is actually very complicated. But there is one relationship that is far more powerful than all the others, and it is this. When there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer because it traps more heat from the sun inside. In the parts of the United States that contain the modern cities of Cleveland, Detroit, New York, in the northern tier, this is the difference between a nice day and having a mile of ice over your head. Keep that in mind when you look at this fact. Carbon dioxide, having never gone above 300 parts per million, here is where CO2 is now. Way above where it's ever been as far back as this record will measure. Now, if you'll bear with me, I want to really emphasize this point. The crew here has tried to teach me how to use this contraption here, so if I don't kill myself, I'll... It's already right here. Look how far above the natural cycle this is, and we've done that. But ladies and gentlemen, in the next 50 years, really in less than 50 years, it's going to continue to go up. When some of these children who are here are my age, Here's what it's going to be in less than 50 years. You've heard of off the charts. Within less than 50 years, it'll be here. There's not a single fact or date or number that's been used to make this up that's in any controversy.
Let me replay the part where Gore talks specifically about the relationship between CO2 and temperature in this data set.
And the relationship is actually very complicated, but there is one relationship that is far more powerful than all the others, and it is this. When there is more carbon dioxide, the temperature gets warmer because it traps more heat from the sun inside.
Now, to me, it sounds like he's saying this data show changes in CO2 cause changes in temperature. What does this data actually show? I want you to listen to a question asked by Joe Barton when Al Gore gave his testimony to Congress on this topic.
In your movie, you display a timeline of temperature and compare it to CO2 levels over a 650,000-year period as reconstructed from ice core samples. You indicate that this is conclusive proof of the link of increased CO2 emissions and global warming. A closer examination of these facts reveals something entirely different. I have an article from the Science magazine, which I will put into the record at the appropriate time, that explains historically a rise in CO2 concentrations did not precede a rise in temperatures, but actually lagged temperature by 200 to 1,000 years. Yes, lagged. CO2 levels went up after the temperature rose. It appears that temperature appears to drive CO2, not vice versa. On this point, Mr. Vice President, you're not just off a little, you're totally wrong.